Hi there, Chris Oddy of Marslands Accountants here. Have you received a letter from HMRC? Well, the first thing to do really is identify what the letter is from HMRC and identifying what help that you need. So if you're a landlord, we've actually done another video on this where you can have a look and it will identify what the differences in the two letters. Granted, there are some other ones that may be the case, but either way, we'd be able to help you. But the two most common letters that are sent out by HMRC for landlords who haven't declared any income is the Let Property Campaign Prompting Letter or a tax inquiry letter for this. The differences in the letters aren't actually too much. Generally, the Let Property Campaign is very vague, and other than saying we think you've got some rental income we need you to disclose, while the tax inquiry letter is more, this is the information that we need. But in those videos, it goes through a couple of examples so you can have a look for yourself. Ideally, if you haven't received a letter and you're worried about receiving one, then obviously get in contact straight away and we can get you into the system because you want to be in a Let Property Campaign rather than a tax inquiry, as the system's a lot more straightforward, there's less hassle, and it'll be quicker than going through a tax inquiry generally, and the penalty rates are generally better on the Let Property Campaign. If you're not a landlord and you've received a letter from HMRC and that's worrying you as well, this is also something that we can help with. It may be that you've had a tax inquiry, and again, it's something that we can help with, and it's just about getting the information to HMRC. So don't bury your head in the sand. I know it can be a scary thing receiving that brown envelope in the post, but obviously ignoring it's not going to help, and we want to get you up to date, sort the problems, and into the tax system correctly submitting going forward. So the first bit of advice obviously is identifying it, and then the second one is contacting an accountant. So obviously here at Marslands we do specialise in the Let Property Campaign, which is more on the landlords. However, we have helped other landlords who have gone through a tax inquiry, and we have also helped self-employed people who have gone through a tax inquiry also. So if there is, anything that's worrying you about that, please get in contact with us. If you send us over a copy of the letter as well, everything is confidential, and if you decide not to go with us, it is still obviously confidential, and we would remove any records from our system. So you can send that letter over to admin@marslands.co.uk, and in that we can identify for you what the letter is and the help that we can provide you. So once you've obviously got into contact with an accountant, the next thing that you're going to want to do is start collating the information. Generally with us, what will happen is we'll get you set up on the admin side of things and get you set up as a client first, and then we'll go into the information. However, you can start getting stuff ready straight away, because obviously there's things that you need. So if you're a landlord, you're going to need to know, or self-employed, you need to know what your income and your expenses are essentially. So with a landlord, it's going to be like your rent, and then expenses such as you want to get some mortgage statements together. Bank statements are always a good way to find certain transactions, because obviously you may not have all the records to hand. And obviously if you have an agent in charge of your rental property, then you want to get as many statements from them as you can. And any other expenses such as like boiler repairs and things like that, or as I say, if you're self-employed, then it may be a case of, we need to get together all our income and expenses. So depending on what your business is will depend on what they look like. Obviously, depending on your letter that you've received from HMRC, it may request some information. So if you can start getting together that information before even while you're getting set up with your accountant, then that's the best thing, because they're just going to ask you for the information anyways. And then generally they'll ask you for some, and if you've already prepared some, there might be some extra stuff that you might have missed, but that's fine, we can get that together. With the deadline side of things, HMRC will usually give an extension, but what they are, with the tax inquiry kind of side of things especially, what they'll want to do is get some information in and then get everything else in as soon as possible after that. So don't leave it to the last minute to contact an accountant, but just know that if you are in that situation, it doesn't have to be a huge rush. We can obviously try. We can't guarantee that they'll accept it, but from our experience, HMRC are understanding, and will normally grant an extension, so we can do that for you. Depending on how close the deadline is and depending on the type of situation you're in, you may have to do that request, because authorization with HMRC can take a while sometimes. But the next thing obviously on that, once you've got all of your information in, is the accountant. getting the accounts ready, essentially. So if it's a let property campaign or a tax inquiry, either one, we'll have to start preparing the accounts for all of the years, and then obviously calculating the tax, interest, and penalties. If it's an inquiry, generally we'll calculate it so that we have a rough idea, but it will just be the accounts that are submitted to HMRC. And then what happens is they then come back with the penalties. And if it's too different to the accountant's figures, usually they'll go and argue with HMRC about that. While with the let property campaign, the way that it works is essentially we submit an offer. So that will include the penalty and the interest rates. And then HMRC will come back to us and explain if they either agree or if they have any questions about anything. And then obviously the final thing is to get it submitted, get the tax paid. And the one thing to note is if you are worried about the tax paying and it is, you know, keeping you up at night or anything, is that HMRC do offer a payment plan. So some clients have gone down that route depending on their personal situation. Your accountant will be able to discuss that with you and discuss what the tax is, but setting up the payment plan generally has to be done by yourself because HMRC won't talk about direct debits and things with your agent. But yeah, if this is anything, you know, that is worrying you and you are having these problems, please send us an email on admin@marslands.co.uk or give us a call on 01752 344 582. And we can get a meeting booked in with you and identify what is your situation. So yeah, thank you for watching. Bye.